Hey guys, I want to talk about dynamic queue and why it's really not that bad. A lot of people have been complaining about dynamic queue and how it's been ruining ranked and ruining League of Legends, and I really don't see it that way. So my main is Diamond 4. I have a Smurf in low plat and another one in high gold. So I do have some knowledge about how the game works. I saw a comment on Reddit about how dynamic queue sucks because so many people get carried. Four challengers could carry bronze to high diamond or maybe master. And that's an extreme way of looking at it, but it's also a valid point that that can be done, although I don't think anybody has done it. But another way to look at it is that if you have four challenger players coaching one player as they're carrying them through ranked, that person's going to probably improve pretty rapidly. They won't have the same amount of game experience as other people, but they will have a large amount of game knowledge. Now, back to coaching, that's one reason why I love Dynamic Queue, because I do have an account in gold so I can play with silver friends. And as I'm playing with them, I will try and coach them and teach them how to play better, how to make better decisions, how to trade objectives. And if they decide to take that knowledge and work with it, practice with it on their own time, they're going to improve. And even though I'm carrying them out of silver or out of gold or whatever, they're going to be able to sustain where they're at with their elo and probably go 50% win rate. So it's not like I'm, carrying them and then they're just gonna feed in that elo whatever I get them to constantly. Now, some people might argue, well, you could do that in normal, which there's a valid point there. But I think there's a certain competitive tryhard aspect in ranked that's gonna help you improve a little bit faster. Now, in the beginning when they first launched Dynamic Q, I feel like it was pretty messed up because you would go against people way out of your MMR or against a group of five. And when I queue with four other friends, more often than not, yeah, we do go against a five-man pre-made, but it's not like I go against a bunch of solo queue players. Another reason a large majority of players are complaining about dynamic queue is that it's easier to blame dynamic queue as the reason you can't climb as opposed to, hey, I'm not good enough to climb. The meta has changed since last season. The gameplay has changed since last season. I was stuck in Platinum 2 for a long time. I filled my promos to Plat 1 18 times. I did make it to Plat 1, but got demoted and had to go back through my promos. And I had to change my champion pool. I had to change the way I played. I knew what my weaknesses were, and I had to adapt to that in order to get back into Diamond. Dynamic queue sucks because somebody else said that. That must be the reason I can't climb. It's not because I'm just not good enough. I mean, why am I Diamond and not Challenger? Because I'm not good enough. The dynamic queue only really has a few flaws as far as the top 1 to 2% of players go, which is pretty much just Diamond and higher. Uh, and that's going against full pre-mades. If you're not a full pre-made at Diamond, it's pretty rough. You can learn quite a bit though. The whole autofill option or whatever that Riot introduced, that's pretty bullshit. That needs to be tweaked definitely. I don't think that should be a thing in the game. Yeah, it cuts down on queue time, but if you've got, 3 to 4 players in a game playing a role they don't want to play, I mean, they're not gonna have fun. They're not gonna want to queue up. So that definitely needs to be addressed. I would like to see ranked fives come back, perhaps. Um, because I know diamonds can only queue with 3 people. There was some post on Reddit about that actually. Here it is. Bronze and silvers can queue with 4 to 5 friends. Gold to plat. Yeah, as you climb, you have to drop how many people you can queue with, and then when you hit diamonds, you can only queue by yourself. That's an interesting thought. I kind of like it. I kind of don't. I'd be fine with it if there was a competitive ranked fives for diamond and higher. That would be pretty fun. When it really comes down to it, dynamic queue is not that bad. People are just complaining to complain. There's also an argument that's been made that solo queue actually meant something compared to dynamic queue. Um, I kind of see that point, but at the same time, not really. Because even in solo queue, I could make a Smurf and carry people to platinum, which is what I did last season. And frankly, it wasn't any harder or easier than it is now. There's not a lot wrong with dynamic queue. No system is going to be perfect. I don't think dynamic queue is really any better or any worse than solo queue. People will just want to hate on it and blame dynamic queue for being the reason they can't climb elo. And the truth is, if you can't climb, you're just not good enough. And it sucks to admit you're not good enough. It's a lot easier to put the blame on something else, hence dynamic queue being the reason you can't climb. But pretty much anyone who's ever gone to diamond or higher, they had to figure out what their weaknesses were in the game and improve on that in order to improve their gameplay so they could climb to diamond. And that's pretty much what everyone else needs to do. When it comes down to it, dynamic queue is really not that bad of a system. Any system's going to have a few flaws, but for 98% of players, dynamic queue is fine. If you can't climb elo, you're just not good enough yet. I mean, it sucks to admit that, but that's pretty much what it comes down to. That's why I'm diamond and not challenger, because I have to get better. Dynamic queue has not increased the amount of trolls in game or AFKers in game. It's the same as solo queue. So that's my perspective on dynamic queue. I really don't think it's that bad of a system. I don't think it's, really that flawed. To me, it's got the same pros and cons, the same amount of pros and cons as solo queue did. You're always going to have people that are carried at some elo or boosted to some elo, solo or dynamic. I think that dynamic queue just kind of increases the competitiveness of ranked. It's a team-oriented game. It's not meant to be like, oh, one person carries their entire team to victory. No, everybody has to work together. And I think that's what Riot is kind of wanting to promote with dynamic queue. But hey, that's just my thoughts on it.